One thing that we are just in the process right now. The following program was recorded at WERC's annual conference in Orlando, Florida. I'm pleased to welcome Supply Chain Brain Editor Emeritus, Jean Murphy.
Hello. Today I'm speaking with Brian Everett, Executive Director of Nasstrac. We're going to be talking about shipper advocacy issues. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you, Jean.
Well, we are here at WERC, and I know that you were head of the transportation track here, and one of the things you were doing was presenting some of your observations about shipper advocacy issues. So give us, give us a lowdown on that. What's of interest to you right now?
Yeah, and really it's not of interest to just Nasstrac, but overall the industry at large. There's a number of considerations and rulemaking activities that are going on in DC right now that specifically are going to impact the supply chain and transportation activities of shippers throughout our country. And those folks really need to be concerned about what is going on. Truly, Nasstrac, the advocacy chair Mike Regan at Transact Technologies, really calls it the war on trucking. And many of our shipper members are very focused on over-the-road transportation as their primary means for managing their supply chains. And we're very concerned about all of the rulemaking that's going on right now that is going to have a negative impact on the productivity, the efficiencies, and ultimately the cost of supply chains. Some of those activities are specifically around the potential change of hours of service rules, where the FMCSA is talking specifically about potentially bringing down the requirement to 10 hours, and then a start-stop time is another big concern going on with the hours of service. So literally looking at the data, that safety is not necessarily going to be impacted because we've already made a lot of good safety progress with the current hours of service rules. And to really truly change that would totally change, in a very negative, counterproductive way, supply chains around the country.
I apologize for asking this because I should know, but were the changes that are being considered now in response to suits about the changes that are still very recent?
Yeah, it's all based primarily on safety advocacy groups, and certainly we at Nasstrac, as well as the industry at large, should be very concerned about over-the-road safety when it comes to trucking. And with the current hours of service rules, the trucking industry has made tremendous strides in improving safety. And we are just firm believers that as we look at the data, as we look at the progress that we've made since the hours of service rules that are currently in effect took place in 2003, tremendous strides in safety. And as we look at really balancing the need for safety, the public safety, as opposed to productivity, there really is no proof that we're seeing that there would be any tremendous additional safety gains that's counter to the actual productivity that you'd lose in terms of changing the hours of service rules.
So in addition to that, you also have the CSA driver requirement rules, right?
Right. Yeah, there's a number of other particular advocacy issues that we're looking at very carefully. And certainly CSA 2010, I guess now 2011, as that requirement goes into effect, just really helping to educate the shippers and certainly the carriers. It's a big issue for them as well, as far as what the impact could be negatively for drivers. And of course, we already have a very significant driver shortage, and really trying to look at not only CSA, but additional legislation that could have a negative impact on our already small pool of driver talent.
Tell me how, I know, in the years of regulation, when you were seeing people up here talking to Congress and to the regulatory agencies all the time, that has certainly declined to a large degree. Is it more difficult these days to get shippers interested in really being strong advocates on the Hill and you know, in Washington?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a difficulty of getting their interest. I think what we really find is shippers are just so strained for time. They have so many more responsibilities on their shoulders, and then to pay attention to issues that seems to be from a distance. It's just hard for them to focus while they're focusing on the day-to-day operational activities and managing their supply chains. But that being said, clearly the decisions that are being made and certainly that are being considered now in rulemaking can have a detrimental impact on their operations. And so that's really our goal at Nasstrac, is to get the word out, continually to educate our shipper members as well as our associate members who are carriers of all modes of freight. And what I've also found, interestingly enough, is in recent years there's very much an overlap of the shipper concerns when it comes to advocacy as well as carrier concerns. Everyone, I think, is much more on the same page. They understand that truly both sides are partners, and whatever is going to be made in terms of decisions out of DC is going to impact both sides of the equation.
And that's what groups like Nasstrac do. If they want to become active, they can always join a group like Nasstrac, right?
Very much so. One thing that we are just in the process right now of launching is a new advocacy microsite. It's freightadvocacy.org, all one word, and would very much encourage your viewers on Supply Chain Brain to take a look at that. It's a new tool that also incorporates into the website itself, so that there's a letter writing campaign, so that as they look at specific rulemaking considerations that are being taken into effect in Capitol Hill, they can see what the potential framework of that bill would have an impact on for their operation. And there's in fact even letter templates that can then go automatically sent to their members of Congress, as long as they put in their zip codes of where they're originating from. So it's a very effective and easy to use tool, and really brings things down on a very basic fundamental level for all participants to be able to use that. So I very much encourage your viewers to take advantage of that tool as well.
So just to talk briefly about some of the other issues that shippers are concerned about, capacity certainly is one. Is there anything, any advice you have to offer shippers out there to manage that issue?
Well, you know, it's kind of interesting too, because it's not all about price when it comes to capacity. And that's one of the things that I've just made notation of as I'm talking with our members at Nasstrac, as well as certainly those folks here at WERC, is you know, what other kind of things can you do as a shipper to make yourself more attractive in terms of if you have specific freight patterns that are within your distribution network, you know, in terms of operational issues. If you can make things more compatible and more attractive to your carrier partners in the long run, it really kind of puts price to the side of the conversation, and more so puts, you know, how can this be a win-win on both sides of the equation.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Jean.
I've been speaking with Brian Everett of Nasstrac. Thank you for watching.